Welcome to this session. My name is Barbara Gochalia, and today we are going to look at international market entry strategies, or what we refer to as global market entry strategies. So basically with the global market, we are looking at means. Of course, we saw that with international trade, it involves exchanges. It involves exchange of goods and services, right, between countries, across the country's borders. But then these exchanges, we use different modes, right? We use different modes of transacting international business. So we are basically going to be looking at a number of international marketing entry modes or global market entry strategies. And we shall be looking at strategies like exporting. We shall be looking at franchising, contracting, joint venture, licensing, among others. So I believe all of us know what exporting is, and this is the most known and common, I think, means of mode of international market entry. So with exporting, basically, it will involve direct sale of, it can either be indirect sale of goods and services into another country, or it can be an indirect exporting. So with exporting, it can either be direct or indirect exporting. So direct, of course, now here we have the home market selling its goods and services to overseas or to other countries outside that country's border. Then indirect export here, it will involve an organization selling its goods and services to a particular party, a third party, which third party will will later on sell these goods to the foreign market. So here it will basically involve three parties, whereas direct exporting involves two parties. Indirect exporting will involve three parties. It will involve a third party. And then we have licensing. We are all going to be looking at all these global market entry strategies in detail. Then we have licensing, we have franchising, we have contracting, we have direct investment. Then we have joint venture, right? So let us look at what licensing means, right? A license. So with licensing, basically here we have to, if they are countries, we have two countries, right? So one country or one farm in a particular country will issue a license to another farm to sell on its behalf. Basically here, the license will be provided to the other farm in a foreign country temporarily for this farm to acknowledge, for example, intellectual property rights to acquire the brand name. So the other farm in a foreign country will purchase a license from the other farm that is called the licensor. The farm that is giving the license is the licensor, and the one that is buying the license to whom the one that to whom the license is issued is called the licensee. It's called the licensee. So the license basically for this farm will be to use the brand name, to use that farm's brand name or that company's brand name, its copyright, to use its trademark, for a patent, to use its technological skills, to use its trade secret, and so on. So here we basically have a licensor and a licensee. A licensor will be the company offering the license, and the licensee will be the company to which the license is issued. So here practically we have the licensor and the licensee. The licensor and the licensee. The licensee is the one to whom the license is issued. The licensor is the one that is issuing the license, and in return the licensee pays makes a payment to the licensor, which is called a royalty fee, right? So that fee that the licensee pays to the licensor is called a royalty fee. Now, for example, Coca-Cola and Pepsi, these are beverages that are globally produced, right? And sold by local bottlers in different companies. So basically, these local bottlers in different countries, they pay for this license to sell the Coca-Cola or the Pepsi in their countries, right? So basically, that's what we mean by licensing, and it is one of the modes of international market entry or global entry market strategy. Now, why licensing, right? Of course, for a company, for a firm to choose any of these entry modes, there has to be a reason. So for licensing, basically, it is to expand, it is for international expanding for a brand franchise, yeah? So basically here, the firm will be aiming at expansion, expanding internationally, growth, right? Then also need for commercialization of new technology. You may find that the firm has invented new kind of technology and it wants to sell. Of course, it is getting money when it sells that license. It will be getting a payment, generating money through selling that license. So what are the benefits of licensing, right? So licensing, of course, helps these countries, these firms to enter the international market with little risk, right? With little risk. But however, it also has its limitations. It has its limitations in a way that the licensee, the person to whom the license is issued, will not have control, will have no control over the distribution and sales of the product, right? So it's the licensor who is the boss of the licensee, and at the end of the day, the licensee has no control over the distribution, since they will be dancing at the tunes of the licensor. And then you find that with this licensing, at the end of the day, when the agreement expires between the licensor and the licensee, you may find that this licensee may end up now starting up another similar firm, and finally, at the end of the day, becoming a competitor or a rival firm. We've seen such things happen, such scenarios happen. Yeah. So after the contract has expired between the licensor and the licensee, you find the licensee is now opening up a similar firm, which is literally a duplicate or a replica of the licensor's company. So at the end of the day, becoming a competitor. So such scenarios do happen. So as that is a limitation of licensing, right? And as a preventive measure, in order to avoid such, right? In order to avoid such, of course, the licensor should have boundaries. You do not have to sell each and everything. Of course, you keep some of the knowledge to yourself. You cannot expose all the knowledge to the licensee, right? You leave out something for yourself, of course, for to protect your patents. Now let's look at the technological transfer. Now, of course, we've seen that with licensing, it will involve transfer of technology. It will involve transfer of technology where the licensee is now getting some getting some kind of technological skills from the licensor, right? So with the licensing, it involves transfer. It may involve a transfer of knowledge, and this transfer of knowledge can be through published materials like journals, books. It could be through purchase and sale of machinery and equipment, right? Whereby, of course, like we've seen Coca-Cola and Pepsi, they need equipment and machines to manufacture these beverages. So of course, at the end of the day, the technological skills are transferred to the licensees, right? So the technological transfer can be in terms of 6 categories, and it can either be international technological transfer, where we see that the technological skills are crossing from one country's border to another country. And then it can also be a regional technological transfer, where we see that when we say region, of course, we are looking at countries in the same geographical location, right? So this technological transfer can be transferred to countries in the same geographical location. Then it can also be cross-industry or cross-sector technology transfer. It can also be cross-industry or cross-sector technological transfer, where we have technology being transferred from one industrial sector to another, from one industrial sector to another. Then it can also be inter-farm technological transfer, where we see technology being transferred from one company to another, where we see technology are being transferred from one company to another, right? And then it can also be intra-farm technological transfer. Here we are seeing within the same farm, technology is being transferred in different between the different departments in the same facility, in the same farm. That is intra. Then also technology can be transferred. The technological transfer can be in form of pirating. I guess you've heard about pirating or reverse engineering. Pirating is, for example, you find like, for example, people pirate these softwares. Pirating is you use the software minus the property rights of the owner. I would call it stealing, in quotes, stealing a software. Are we getting? Using a software without paying for it, but it is basically without the property rights of the owner's technology. So that is pirating. Yeah, you're using the software, for example, illegally without paying for it. That is what you call, that is a technological transfer, but in an illegal way. Reverse engineering or pirating. Then let us look at the parties involved in the technological transfers. What are the parties involved in the technological transfer? So of course we have the home country. For example, if it is Uganda here, it will be the home country, and the host country will be the other country where, for example, Uganda is carrying out the international trade with. So for example, if your country is Uganda, the farm is in Uganda, you're doing the trade with Kenya, Kenya will be your host country. Are we together? Kenya will be you're using your licensing, you're providing, you're issuing out a license to other farms in Kenya. Then it means Kenya will be your host country, but Uganda will be the home country. So what are the reactions of this technological transfer in the home country, right? So of course, in the home country, we realize that citizens in the home country, in most cases, they don't want the technological transfer to another country, because here they see that the country's citizens will be losing out on jobs. They will be losing out on jobs to other jobs to other citizens in another country where the technological transfer is where the technology is being transferred, right? Whereas also in the host country here, in the host country, it may also be that the host country also may have serious reactions, right? They may also be have strong reservations, right? Whereby they may here with the host country, of course the technology is coming in the host country, but it also has implications, and these may be also economic implications, where you see that, for example, when the technology is being transferred, for example, you're bringing in maybe expertise, yeah, technicians, different people, different personnel with different expertise in your country. They are coming in. They have to be paid, right? They have to be paid for the technological skills that they are offering to your country. And of course, paying them will have an economic implication, right? It will have an economic implication on the economy. So at the end of the day, it may end up, the technology might be good, but as the government pays these experts for offering the technological skills, it may have a budget implication on the country's economy. Then also with this technological transfer coming into what we call the host country, it may have social implications. What are those social implications? Of course, with the technology, when technology comes in, it influences the culture of the people in that country. For example, yeah, it influences the culture of just look at these phones, how they've influenced the culture of people. People do not have, people are basically losing out on the culture, right? You find someone, the people are living in the same house, but they are not even greeting each other. Everyone is on WhatsApp, right? So you just imagine that the husband is seated, the husband, the wife, the children, they are all in the same room, but they are not talking. Everyone is on their phone. Everyone is WhatsApping. Everyone is Facebooking, right? So no one has time for the other. Are we together? So at the end of the day, the culture, it's affecting the social life of these people. For them, they think that when they're on phone, it is great. But literally, they don't have time for their family members. You don't have time for your wife. You don't have time for your child. So this technology may come in, but at the end of the day, it is having a negative influence. It is having a negative influence on the cultures, the beliefs, the thoughts, the practices of the people in that host country, right? And then with the technological transfer, basically, it may only focus on minor, what you call nitty-gritty, gritties. It may focus on the minors, right? And of course, this technological transfer, in most cases, it has conditions attached, right? It has conditions attached. For example, you may find that in the host country, much as the experts have gone there to provide, to maybe to offer employment for this licensee, you may find that the government policies there require them maybe to employ a certain number of domestic citizens there. So the technological transfer also basically depends on government policies. Yeah, so that was the licensing. Now let's go to what we call as contracting, international subcontracting. So with the subcontracting or international subcontracting, basically here, what happens is that a country, for example, a home country, if it is Uganda, will contract will subcontract another farm in another country, maybe in Kenya, to do to manufacture for it, yeah, to manufacture on its behalf the products that it would have manufactured when it was there. So the other company in another country manufactures on its behalf and then sells on its behalf. So that's what we call subcontracting, international subcontracting. What are the advantages of subcontracting? One of them, that it frees up time for contractors to focus on their construction business. So it saves time because you're subcontracting someone in another country to do the job for you, to manufacture for you, to sell on your behalf. You are saving the time that you would have wasted literally, maybe physically going there in another country and doing the manufacturing yourself. Then it also reduces the cost. It is less expensive than actually hiring full-time employees, because these subcontracts are basically seasonal, right? They are short-term, rather than after the contract has ended, that will be the end. So it saves time, it saves it costs, yeah, it is less expensive. Then a contract must be drawn up to guarantee warranties of services being provided. So of course, with the subcontract, it involves documentations and the agreements done. So at the end of the day, of course, when with these agreements made, you have the trust, yeah, you'll have the assurance that this is going to work out well, than when you do not have agreements or documented. And then the contractor will gain more knowledge and resources, right? So of course, the contractor will be depending on the technological skills of the person that they have subcontracted, right? The person that they've subcontracted. So at the end of the day, the cost that the contractor would have spent on technological skills, acquiring the required technological skills, they are actually reducing them by subcontracting the people that have the required and appropriate technological skills to do that kind of work in another country on their behalf. And then these subcontractors, actually, they are using their equipment to do the work on behalf of the contractor, So at the end of the day, it reduces cost. So we see that it is subcontractors. When the contracting company or the contracting firm is subcontracting another firm in another country to do the manufacturing for it on its behalf, of course, it will not use its equipment. It's the subcontractor that will use their equipment. So practically, it will not even involve startup costs. So at the end of the day, it all rotates back to reducing costs, right? And they, of course, also reducing costs in terms of payroll, taxes, and benefits will decrease, right? Like we've already seen that instead that subcontracting is seasonal. So basically, the contractor will be reducing on all these costs of having permanent staff. Then legal liability will be transferred to the subcontractor. So in case the subcontractor does not do the work well on behalf of the contractor, it will be the subcontractor who is liable, who will suffer the liability, who will be responsible for not maybe having carried out the work very well. Disadvantages of subcontracting: lack of staff development, given the fact that the contractor is just using is subcontracting, and this is seasonal. He's not using permanent employees. So at the end of the day, these employees of the contracting company, they will not attain the required skill. They will not actually develop in terms of skill development. Then contractors will use more time researching potential subcontractors. You know, to get a trustworthy subcontractor, it is not easy. You may end up getting people that are conmen, people that are not faithful or trustworthy, and at the end of the day, they may do what we call short day work, or substandard work. So also it takes time to actually find or discover a person, that a partner that you can actually subcontract, a subcontractor who is faithful enough to do the work well for you. Then contractors will lose their control over the timeliness and quality of work, because we've seen that now here, when you subcontract a farm in another country, you basically rely at the masses. The quality of work will lie at the masses of these subcontractors, right? So if they do shoulder work or they don't do quality work, at the end of the day, you don't have control. You just have to abide. Then poor performance quality, of course, at the end of the day, you may end up with a poor work done or poor quality products, because you are relying at the masses of the subcontractor. So that was international subcontracting. We've looked at licensing, international subcontracting. We are now looking at another mode. We are now looking at another mode of global market entry, which is franchising. So with franchising, we have a franchisor and a franchisee. With franchising, we have a franchisor and a franchisee, right? So a franchisor is the one that is selling the franchise. Now, what is the franchise? Yeah. So a franchise is specifically that right? It is a right that is granted to another person. That it could be a farm, Of course, the farms are headed by people. It is a farm now offering the right, to another farm in another country, a foreign country, to sell on its behalf, And in return, the franchisee makes a payment to the franchisor. That payment is called a royalty fee. Now, someone may be asking now, what is the difference between franchising and licensing? What is the difference between franchising and licensing? They are similar, but there is a slight difference. Now, with the franchising, the uniqueness, the similarity is that the person buying the rights, pays a royalty fee to the person selling the rights. That is the similarity. But the difference between the two is that with franchising, it has what we call strict rules. It has the strict rules whereby you find the franchisor requires the franchisee to follow standards, given standards to ensure quality. The franchisor follows up on the franchisee to make sure that the franchisee produces quality goods or quality services, right? So it can even require the franchisor providing the employees with the required technical expertise to go and work, to go and train these employees in the country where the franchisee is. So there are strict requirements, there are restrictions, there are strict standards that have to be followed, that a franchisor requires the franchisee to follow to ensure quality. For example, here we have KFC. Yeah, I believe we all know KFC. Kentucky Fried Chicken. So you see that this chicken started, this business of frying chicken, started in Kentucky, right? Kentucky Fried Chicken. But because it is a franchise, and we've seen that with the franchise, the franchisor requires, puts standards, yeah, that have to be followed by the franchisee to ensure quality. You find that the kind of chicken in Kentucky, it has the same taste like the kind of chicken that you find maybe KFC Uganda, KFC Kenya, wherever all over the world. It has the same taste. Why? Because the franchisor puts strict requirements for the franchisee. It may even require training, getting employees from this franchisor, the franchisor country, to go and train these employees here in another country to ensure that the chicken tastes well, the same. There is no difference in the taste. So that is the difference between licensing. Without licensing, it is not really strict. Once the licensor sells out the license to the licensee may not really follow the production and sales and marketing systems that the licensor is following. The licensee can divert from. There is no monitoring. There is no strict monitoring between the licensor and the licensee in licensing. But with franchising, it is strict, right? So basically, that is the difference between the two, right? That is the difference. I believe we can now distinguish between the two. So let's look at the advantages and disadvantages of franchising, right? The advantages and disadvantages of franchising for the franchisor. So the franchisor will have these disadvantages. For the advantage is that expansion can be made faster because franchisees provide labor and their sales provide the growth. So like we've already seen that with the franchising, it's aimed at increasing, it's aimed at expansion or growth. Yeah. So the farm is now providing a franchise to other farms in other countries. Basically, this gives room for expansion of that farm internationally. And then, but the disadvantage is that franchisees cannot be managed as closely as employees, and they may have different goals to the franchisor. So in one way or the other, you cannot micromanage these franchisees. Yes, there is strict monitoring under franchise, but you may not monitor 100%, right? And then the advantage for the franchisor is that franchisees are responsible for the company's success, so they are more motivated. So a franchisor is basically under a subject of a franchisee. So there is motivation in this kind of global market entry mode. Whereas the disadvantage is franchise recruitment can be slower and less efficient than employee recruitment. Of course, you have to take time to choose the rightful person that will be the franchisee. Don't just wake up one morning and pick anyone on the street. Then another advantage for the franchisor is that franchisees may be more talented at growing the business and turning a profit than employees would be. So a franchisee is more loyal than the employees, and of course, a franchisee will have more skills than may have more skills compared to the normal employees. Then, but the disadvantage is that these franchisers, of course, we see that the franchisers, yes, they earn a royalty fee that is paid by the franchisee, But then we find that at the end of the day, these franchises may not really earn, may not really benefit a lot, because they are paying a royalty fee, number one, to the franchisor. And number two is that they may need, it may not really be possible for them to achieve growth. It may not be possible for them to achieve growth, because you're paying a royalty fee to the franchisor, and then yet you have to make sure that you also earn a profit. So it may not be easy for the franchisees. So the another advantage of the franchisor is that they really they invest little money in new locations. Why? Because the franchisee will do all the work for them, will work on their behalf. As long as the franchisee, the role of the franchisee is just to purchase the license from the franchisor, and then the franchisee, of course, will use their own capital, start up everything. So literally here it is, we should say that it is of low cost, or it is cheap, or it is less expensive, right? Franchising is less expensive than other entry modes that you are going to look at. For example, franchising is less expensive if you compare it to what we call greenfield investment, yeah, or acquisition that you are going to later on look at. Then franchisees, and a disadvantage is that franchisees don't always work together like employees might, thus losing potential collective benefits. So franchisees, they basically work independently. They will not work like how employees in a particular firm work collectively, right? So franchisees, in most cases, they work independently. And then, of course, at the end of the day, this franchisor is earning what you call the royalties, the royalty fee, right? And yet for a franchisee, it will be costly for a franchisee. The startup cost will be huge, or will be high for the franchisee, whereas with the franchisor, for them, it will be cheaper for them, because the franchisee is working on their behalf. And then, of course, at the end of the day, that we see that with the franchisor, at the end of the day, if there are consistent operations across the businesses in these different countries, we may end up having improved quality levels. Yeah, of course, we've seen that with a franchise, there is strict monitoring of the franchisee to ensure quality, like how we've seen the KFC chicken that is in Kentucky tastes the same as the KFC chicken in Uganda and elsewhere around the world. So there is quality, there is a maintenance of quality under franchise. Then franchisees should be fully committed due to the investment they put in. So because these franchises are fully, they invest, they use their money to invest, yeah, to invest in these different locations, given the fact that they've attained a franchise from their franchisor. Of course, something that you paid for, you value it, so they are more committed, right? They are more committed to their work. And then the disadvantage is that sharing confidential information with franchisees is risky. Like we've already seen that much as you're sharing this information and providing rights, yeah, patents, these people to use your name, the brand name, you should not share everything with them, because at the end of the day, these franchises might overturn against you, and instead they become competitors, they become your rivals. We've seen these things happening in businesses. So the franchisor, of course, should have limits. You don't share each and everything, especially when it comes to brand names, you know, You have to leave out something for yourself. You don't expose everything to the franchisee. Another entry mode is what we call joint ventures. Joint ventures. Now, with the joint ventures, we realize that with the joint ventures, it will require 2 or more organizations, 2 or more parties. Yeah, they share ownership. So it can be a farm, for example, here in Uganda, coming together with another farm, with another organization in another foreign country, and they will buy shares. Yeah, they will combine, they will join together, they will share the ownership, right? So you find that this farm has shares, the other farm also has shares. They could be 2 or more, right? And they are sharing the shares, they are sharing the returns on investment, the profits, yeah, the expenses. So that is what we call a joint venture, right? A joint venture. So for example, here you may find the company. Foreigners come and they find a company already established here and they buy shares in that company. So that will be a joint venture, right? That one will be a joint venture. And what are the advantages of joint ventures? Right? So profit at low cost. So we realize that it is the company that is joint venturing, yeah? You don't have, there are no startup costs because you're venturing in a company that is already existing. So there are low startup costs, yeah? And then flexible nature. It is flexible in a way that these shares can be bought, yeah, by anyone. So it is, you can easily buy, and then also when you feel like you want to exit, you can also share these, you can also sell these shares to another farm. Are we together? Or another organization. So that's where the flexibility comes in with the joint ventures. Then startup push. These joint ventures, they give a go ahead for businesses to start, yeah, to start and to work globally, because basically, like you've already seen, that they do not require high startup costs. It is cheap. It is cheap. And then they are shared the cost, expenses, benefits, and risks. Of course, because we are seeing 2 or more farms or organizations coming together, sharing, having shares in this company or this organization. At the end of the day, we are seeing that they are sharing the cost, they are sharing the liability, or the risk, right? And they're also sharing the benefits. And then with the joint venturing, it's basically, it provides learning ground, or it provides experience, what we call experience, in a way that, for example, if this farm, if you're venturing with another farm, yeah, but you find you do not have the technological skills. Of course, at the end of the day, if the other farm that you're venturing with has the technological skills, you will learn. You will learn the technological skills. So it is a learning ground, especially with these partners, of the joint venture that initially do not have the required technological skills. They will learn at the end of the day. They will learn. So it will be a learning ground, or what we call, what we've seen as transfer of technology. Then what are the disadvantages of joint venture? Much as we've seen that it's flexible, but the flexibility may be restricted in a way that you do not have total control over the organization, because you find that 2 or more partners have ventured into the organization. So flexibility may be limited in a way that you do not have total control over the organization. Then asset and claims. So you may find that with asset and claims, basically what we mean here is that at the end of the day, we may, of course, they may be conflicts. The conflicts arise where we see that with these conflicts, of course, the shares are there, but when now it comes to the assets, dividing those assets, especially when there are conflicts, might become a problem, Yeah. And then equal involvement is impossible. So you may find one has like 20% shares, another one has like 50% shares, right? And then another one has like 30% shares. Are we together? So of course the effort or the involvement will, most of them will of course the effort will be in terms of the shares. So the person who has 10% shares really may not have too much zeal or effort for the organization than someone who, compared to someone who has 50% shares, right? And then rapport formation is that rapport is good relationships. Rapport is good relationship. So it brings about good relationships. Good what? Relationship. So you may find that maybe citizens of a particular country have joint ventured with this country. So of course, at the end of the day, we shall have what we call good diplomatic relationship. If this rapport is good relationship, right? Good relationship. So for example, if you find that some of these partners in the joint venture were Chinese, but then they were venturing with the Ugandans, yeah. So of course that one will create a good relationship, yeah. Good international business relationship, right? Or diplomatic relationship between the two countries, Uganda and China. All right. Then we have what we call counter trade. Counter trade. Now with the counter trade, it involves transactions. We have a buyer and we have a seller. But here it's upon, I should say, agreement, whereby the seller will offer goods and services to the buyer with the expectation, or with the expectation that, or with the promise that this buyer will also at a certain time to also purchase from the seller. It's like buy from me, I also buy from you. If you buy from me, I also buy from you. So that's what we call counter trade. So there is conditional buying and conditional selling, yeah, with the cross counter trade. Counter trade. And now this counter trade can be in different forms. It can be counter trade in form of barter trade. It can be counter trade in form of barter trade, where we are seeing that, of course, this is happening internationally between different firms, different organizations in different countries. And here we see that the counter trade can be in form of barter trade, where these countries, these firms in different countries, they are exchanging goods for goods and services, right? Exchanging, direct exchange of one good for another. That is typical of that is the counter trade, but now in form of what? Of barter trade between these two countries, right? And then also the counter trade can be in form of a clearing house arrangements, right? A clearing house arrangements, and with the clearing house arrangements, here it means that these countries, for example, if we have country A and country B, right? Country A and country B. So these countries will do barter, right? It will be in form of barter, in which these countries will exchange goods for each other, goods for goods, yeah, between each other. But of course, they set up accounts. Country A sets up an account, and the country B also sets up an account. So as they trade, they do the barter trade, the goods, trading the goods between themselves. There will be debiting, right? There will be how would I call it now? If this country buys goods from the other country, it will pay the money on the other country's account. And if also country A buys goods from country B, country A will pay money on country B's account, right? So it will be better, but the money is paid on each country's account that has been opened up, right? So that's what we call clearinghouse arrangement. Then it can also be in the form of the counter trade, also can be in form of what we call switch trading, right? Switch trading. So with the switch trading, here it means that one country has an obligation, or one country can purchase from another country. One country or one company has the right or an obligation to make a purchase in another company. But this company now sells its obligation to another party. It sells its obligation to another party of one country's clearing agreement. For example, if we have, let me say, Uganda. If we have Uganda, right, and we have Kenya here, and we have maybe Rwanda here. No, I cannot say Rwanda. Let me say, and we have maybe Ethiopia, right? And we have not Ethiopia. Let me say maybe Malawi, right? And we have Malawi here. Are we together? So now we have, for example, an organization or a company within Uganda. Company X, company Y is in Kenya, and company Z is in Malawi. So we say that Uganda has an obligation, has the right to trade internationally with Kenya, right? But now Uganda can sell its obligation to trade with Kenya. It sells that obligation to Malawi, such that Malawi now has bought the obligation of Uganda to trade with Kenya. Now Malawi can trade with Kenya. So that's what we call switch trading. That's what we call switch trading, but it's also a form of counter trade. It is also a form of counter trade, right? So that was all about counter trade. Then we have what we call turnkey projects. Turnkey projects. Now with the turnkey project, it is also an entry mode, a global market entry mode, or an international market entry mode. Now with the turnkey project here, what happens here is that the one company, for example, in Uganda, will require, right? Will contract will contract another company to do, for example, if we say that it wants to start up, maybe let me say if it is Uganda, if we have Uganda and we have Kenya here, but we are looking at them in the perspective of companies. There is a company X in Uganda and there is company Y in Kenya. So with the turnkey project, what happens is that it usually happens between a developing country and between developing countries and the already developed countries, the first world countries and the developed countries. So for example, here it could be maybe China. Let me say Uganda and China. Uganda and China. So with with turnkey project here, what happens here is that for example, if we have expertise, if there is a company X in Uganda and it wants, let me say, to invest, it wants to start up to open up a subsidiary company in China. There is a company in Uganda that wants to open up a subsidiary, maybe company in China. So China will provide the expertise altogether. Uganda will require, this company in Uganda will pay money to this project. Yeah. So here it will basically, that's why it's called a project. Yeah. So of course, this project will be manned by skilled Chinese, for example, who will now, for example, set up a premise here, set up a factory, construct it, put the required machinery and everything that is required, right? And what will happen is that now this company in Uganda, after these expertise, these technocrats, the Chinese have done the work, they have set up the factory, they have put the required machine and everything, then this Ugandan company will simply pay that project that has done all the work for them. And for them, this company will just be now starting the work, starting to operate in China. Are we together? Because this other project that it employed to do the work for them, to start up maybe the factory, to construct the factory, to put the required machinery, would have done the work for them. So for them, this company in Uganda would just pay the money to this Chinese project that has done the work for them. And then this Ugandan company will now start operating in China. So that's why it's called a turnkey, turning the key, turnkey projects, right? Turnkey projects, because they've already done the work for you, and for you, you're just starting something that if they've initiated, you're just paying and now starting the work in another country. So that's what we mean by turnkey project, right? So I've not got any question. I'm assuming that we are on the same page. So what are the advantages of the turnkey projects, right? So with the turnkey project here, the purchaser is not stressed. The purchaser is comfortable that these people that are doing the work for him, this project that is doing the work for them, that is starting up everything for them and preparing the project that they're going to start on, they are going to do it well. So there is that confidence, there is that surety, there is that assurance that this project that they are going to pay is going to do the work for them, to execute the work for them, and for them they will just be starting to work in a project that has already been started by these experts in another country, for example. So there is that comfort and assurance that the work will be done very well. But the disadvantage is that with these turnkey projects is that these people, this, for example, this country X that you've seen in Uganda, that is just paying for all the phase, the construction phase that has been done, and they are just starting up, they may not really gain the required expertise or the required skills to operate or work in that project. Why? Because they've just done the work for them, and for them they are just starting up. So they may not really acquire the required acquaintance and the required skills to operate the project, because of course they've not been exposed initially. They're just starting up a project that has been started by but that has been started by these experts that they are paying. Then another mode of global market entry is what we call mergers and acquisition. Is what we call mergers and acquisition. All right, let's continue. So another mode of entry, global market entry strategy, is what we call mergers and acquisition. Now with mergers comes from the word merge, right? So with mergers, we see that one company, say in country A, let me say one company in Uganda, we can see, for example, other foreign companies coming here in Uganda, and they merge, right? Merging is combining. They merge with another company and they become one company. And they become what? One company. For example, we can see here in Uganda that Zain merged with what? With Warid Telecom, and it became Airtel. That is an example of a merger altogether. So that is one way of global market entry into a global entry market strategy into international trade, right? So that's what we mean by mergers. Two or more, it can be two or more companies combining together to form one company, right? Mergers. And then acquisition comes from the word acquire, right? Acquisition here, it means that if, for example, we have a company here in Uganda, that company, a farm, it buys, yeah? So here we have a company in Uganda that goes to another country, Let me say if it is it could be what? Maybe a telecommunication company in Uganda that goes to another country, maybe in Tanzania, right? In TZ. So this telecommunication company X goes and buys a telecommunication company in Tanzania. Are we together? So it means that this telecommunication company X in Uganda has acquired this telecommunication company. It has bought. So you purchase. It is basically, acquisition is basically purchasing another farm in a foreign company. That is what? Acquisition, purchasing it for good, and it becomes 100. You gain 100% ownership. Acquisition. So I believe now we know the difference between mergers and acquisition. Now we have different types of mergers. We have different types of mergers. We have what we call horizontal merger. We have what we call horizontal merger. We have what we call vertical merger, called generic merger, and conglomerate merger, and conglomerate merger. Now let us look at each of them. Let us look at what each of these mergers mean. A horizontal merger. A horizontal merger means that the merging is happening between two or more companies that are in the same industry, industry. For example, you may find that if the industry, by the way, a farm is a single business entity. A farm is a single business entity, but an industry is a collection of farms. An industry So we've been seeing that a farm is a single business entity, but an industry is a collection of different farms. So that is the difference between the two. For example, if we have Airtel Uganda, Airtel Uganda is a farm, right? Airtel Uganda. Airtel is a single business entity. Airtel Uganda. That is a farm, right? But if we are looking at the industry, we are looking at different farms. We are looking at MTN. We are looking at Airtel. We are looking at what else? We are looking at K2. We are looking at so on. So an industry is a collection of different farms. For example, here when we are considering as an industry, we shall call it the telecommunication industry. We shall call it the telecommunication industry. The telecommunication industry. So I hope we are getting the difference between an industry and the farm, right? So here with horizontal merger, it's two or more companies in the same industry that are merging. So for example, here we can have Airtel merging with MTN, and it becomes one farm. That's what we mean by horizontal merger. They are all in the same industry. They are all in the telecommunication company, but they merge, like how you see that Warid merged with Zain to become Airtel. That is a horizontal merger, right? Because they were all in the same telecommunication industry. So Warid merged with Zain to become Airtel. So that is a horizontal merger because these firms are in the same telecommunication industry. They are in the same industry. Then we have vertical merger. Vertical merger, right? So here, vertical merger, we have two or more companies in the same industry, but different fields combined in a business, but different fields. So here, they are in the same industry, yes, but they are working in different fields. For example, you may find that maybe I'm just giving an example, though it may not be exact. You may find that, for example, Airtel is doing, they are all in the same telecommunication company. Airtel is doing more of mobile money, right? Mobile money, selling SIM cards, selling airtime, and so on. But you find that maybe AfriCell, right? You find no, you find maybe AfriCell. I understand it closed yesterday or someday this week. It closed. So with the vertical merger, you may find that, for example, we have Airtel. They are in the same telecommunication company, but different fields. So if you may find, for example, Airtel is more into mobile money, selling SIM cards, selling airtime, right? But then you find that, for example, Rock Telecom, you know, Rock Telecom is just dealing in internet. Yeah, for it, it's just concentrating on what? I'm assuming that Airtel is not providing internet. Of course it does, but I'm just assuming that maybe Airtel is not providing internet services. But now they are in the same telecommunication company, but maybe Rock Telecom is the only one that is providing the internet services. So now they merge. Are we getting? So if that scenario is that, we are just assuming, if that is the scenario, that becomes a vertical merger. That becomes a vertical merger. Then we have a co-generic merger, right? Co-generic merger. So with the co-generic merger, we have two or more companies, but these two or more companies, they have some kind of association or relation in terms of the production processes. They are related in some way, in terms of the production processes, in terms of the business markets, right? Or in terms of even the required technologies. They are related in some way. They may not be actually the same, but they are related in terms of production processes, in terms of business markets, and now at the end of the day, they join to become one firm, right? That is a co-generic merger. These two or more firms, they have similarity in terms of their production processes, though they may not be exactly the same, but they have some way they share. They have some similarities they share in terms of the production process, in terms of the required technology, right? So they merge and become one firm. Then conglomerate merger. These ones are totally in different sectors. Two or more companies, they combine. Yeah, they combine and they become one company. But these companies are totally in the different sector. You may find, for example, that one company maybe is dealing in what? In dairy products. One company maybe is dealing in dairy products. Another company is dealing maybe in what? Another one is a telecommunication company like Airtel. So these ones are totally different. Maybe Dairy Corporation is merging with Airtel Uganda. Those ones are totally different sectors. So at the end of the day, that one becomes a conglomerate merger. Two or more companies are joining to become one company, but they are all in different sectors. They are all in different sectors. Now let us look at the process of merger and acquisition. Let us look at the process of merger and acquisition. You don't just wake up one morning and you're like, now we are joining. No, it has a process. So the very first process of merger and acquisition is business evaluation. So you have to, if we have, for example, two companies that want to merge, company X and company Y, right? You have to know the financial status of that company. Some of us have done some financial management, yeah, where we calculate the NPV, is it net present value, internal rate of return, yeah, all those things, yeah, internal rate of return, NPV. You've calculated those things, but the whole essence is to find out the financial viability of the company or of the business. So after that mathematics, the calculations of all those, the present value, the future value, right? And you're getting those figures that will be able to guide you on whether the company is viable or not. Then, of course, after those figures have guided you, at the end of the day, you'll be able to, for example, there are some of you that have done that some financial management. They will tell you that if the NPV is greater than 0, then what? If it's positive and it's greater than 0, then it means that the project is viable, isn't it? The project is financially viable. That is a good project to venture in. So now, after those calculations and the analysis, the financial analysis have been made, then you'll be able to know that the kind of business that you want to merge with is a financially viable business. Otherwise, you cannot merge with a business that is already bankrupt, that is struggling financially. You will just be making risks and mistakes. So that is the very first step of the process of merger and acquisition. The next stage is the proposal phase. So after the proposal phase, after now you've known that the kind of company that you want to merge with is financially viable, then you have to propose. You'll need to do what? You need to send in a proposal to that company, that a written proposal, of course, to that company that you would like to maybe to merge with them, right? That will be the second part. And then the third part of the process, or the third step of the process of merger and acquisition, is planning to exit. Right? So of course, at the end of the day, we've seen that when these companies are merging, right, in most cases you find that the initial company is now laying off the workers. Yeah, is now laying off the workers. Things are changing, the system is changing, right? They are laying off the workers, they are preparing for the new now. So that is basically what you call planning exit. Now the company is now deciding to sell its operations and undergo the stage of exit planning, right? So now the company should now decide on which day, at which specific time it should be able to merge, right? So of course, that will involve these companies making a decision on when to merge. And when they will be able to sell, Then the next stage of merger, of the process of merger and acquisition, is structuring a business deal. Is structuring a business deal. So basically, this structuring a business deal will be a way to actually work out on the market strategies, yeah, the kind of market strategies that this business should take in order to enhance itself, its credibility, right? So structuring a business deal is how now, what are the strategic what are the strategies of marketing that this merged company is going to undertake? Are we together? For example, we see that most of these companies, when they merge, of course, somehow, somewhere they may change the name, but they find their way of trying to expose themselves to publicize and make the public aware about the company, actually make the public aware that it has just merged, it's not a new company. That is all creating innovative strategies to enhance the business and its credibility. Yeah, that is structuring a business deal. Then the next stage of merger and acquisition process is the stage of integration. So this stage of integration now, the companies, these two or more companies are now coming together, but they are putting it in terms of in documentation now. They are documenting, they are signing the agreement that they have merged together. They have merged together. They are now doing the paperwork about the merging, about signing the contracts and negotiating the deal. That is integration stage. And then another stage of the merger and acquisition process will be the operating now the venture. After the merging has done and it's been documented, the agreement has been done, it has been done officially, the paperwork has been done, then of course now the work has to start. Yeah, the venture has to begin operating. Work has to start. Right? All right. So let us look at the factors that affect, the factors that influence a firm's selection of entry strategy. The factors that affect the firm's strategy. The firm, we've looked at all these strategies, we've looked at all these modes of entry, we've looked at joint venture, we've looked at exporting, we've looked at subcontracting, we've looked at turnkey projects, we've looked at counter trade, right? So we've looked at all these, we've looked at mergers and acquisitions, right? All right. There is even what we call greenfield investment. We've not talked about it. I'll be including it here. Greenfield investment, where, for example, if we have a company in Uganda, this company will go in another country, maybe in Rwanda, and they start up from scratch and construct another company. They are, a startup, totally starting up new, building the premises from ABCD, buying the machines, and starting up a whole new venture there in another foreign country. That one will be called that one will be what we call greenfield investment, or a wholly owned subsidiary, a wholly owned subsidiary. So let us look at the factors that, of course, the choice of which global entry mode to be chosen, whether exporting, whether licensing, whether franchising, will of course, you'll be guided. The factors will determine. So we have external factors and internal factors. With external factors, we look at the market size. Of course, a bigger market size for this company in a particular country will, of course, give it a go ahead to use to determine which global market entry strategy to use, to determine which global market strategy to use. We've seen that, of course, global entry modes like franchising, it allows expansion, it allows growth. But of course, you cannot begin franchising when you're just starting up. You're a company that is just starting up. Of course, market size will have a lot to do with you determining the global entry mode. Then market growth, it will depend on the level of growth that the farm is experiencing. For example, we have the farms in these developed countries like the US, Europe, China. For them, they are already grown, and basically they do not even need like to go out and do maybe international trade elsewhere. They will also be doing international trade, but basically these countries they'll require to do maybe international trade with the developed countries, yeah, I mean with the developing world, right? And then government regulations, of course, also have a lot to do. Yeah? Government policies have a lot to do with the determining. For example, you may find some governments they are so strict, they do not allow, they are so strict with the, for example, they are so strict with, for example, importing. They do not allow imports, right? They limit imports, that kind of thing. So practically, that one will determine, government policy has a lot to do with determining which global market entry mode that farms in that country will be selecting, will be choosing. Then the level of competition. The level of competition. Of course, with increased competition, if the competition is tight, right, you may find that at the end of the day, when you outweigh the entry mode to use, it may not be profitable, because there are other farms that internationally that you may not be able to compete with when it comes to the global market, right? To the global market, especially if they are producing on large scale, and for you, you are just a company that is starting up, yeah, that is producing on small scale. So of course, you may not choose modes like, for example, franchising. Those ones will not be for you. Maybe you may use other modes that suit your business. For example, you may choose maybe to do a counter, what we've seen as counter trade, right? Then the physical infrastructure here, we look at, for example, roads. Roads, the country's development, of course, level of development in terms of the physical infrastructure, the roads, the railways, the telecommunication services, financial institution, marketing channels. All those have a lot to do with the facilitating international trade to the overseas market, right? For example, if there is these railways, right? The rail lines. For example, here in East Africa, this railway line, they are working on it, but of course, if it is a developed railway line, you find that it will stimulate, yeah, it will encourage trade, right? It will encourage trade between the East African countries, because of course the infrastructure in form of railway lines is good. So this one will automatically encourage international trade across these countries' borders, right? Compared to where maybe the rail lines are not okay, the financial institutions are not okay. Of course, we've seen that, for example, we've seen that that this has a lot to do with it has a lot to do. For example, we've looked at counter trade. We've seen where these countries they do transact on different accounts. So that has a lot to do with determining the mode of global market entry, determining the mode of global entry market strategy that these firms will be choosing or will be opting for. Then the level of risk. Yeah. Now, this level of risk can be in terms of, for example, political risk. It can be in terms of economic risk. For example, you cannot begin carrying out trade, international trade in a country that is, you cannot, for example, begin carrying out international trade in a country that is politically unstable, that has political instability. There are wars all over the place. So in that kind of thing, of course, you may need to use a global market entry strategy that that minimizes the political risk, that minimizes the political risk, right? For example, you may have to maybe subcontract what you've seen like subcontracting there instead of going there physically, right? Or you do, because we've seen that subcontracting is seasonal in nature. You don't need to employ permanent employees, right? And it reduces the costs, the startup costs. So basically, you may not risk it to, of course, political instability will not affect, political instability will not be conducive for the international trade. So in that perspective, if you see that a country is politically unstable, maybe you may choose entry modes, global entry modes like subcontracting, international subcontracting, because maybe that one will be favorable than just maybe going there physically and maybe doing the mergers and the acquisition. How would you begin purchasing maybe a company, acquiring a company in another, or merging with another company in another country that is politically unstable? That will not work. Then also the economic risks. You have to look at the economic risks. The economic risks can be in terms of volatility of exchange rates, yeah, exchange rates in that country, right? Of course, if they are high volatilities, high fluctuations in the exchange rates of that target market's currency, where you're planning to carry out international trade, it will not be good, because at the end of the day, you will not benefit economically. Assume maybe the country is experiencing high inflation levels, you will not benefit anything, right? The country is having unstable, is having unstable balance of payment situation or positions, right? So it means there that that will not be a profitable venture to really trade internationally with that country, because it is experiencing economic risk. It is experiencing economic risk in terms of maybe fluctuating exchange rates, in terms of inflation, in terms of unfavorable balance of payment, right? So of course, the better the better the country is economically, the more it will encourage international trade with other countries, right? Then operational risks. You also have to look at risks in terms of operations risks. So you may find that it is more risky to carry out business in another country than in the host country than in the home country, right? you may find that, for example, it is costly. It might be costly even to carry out business in a foreign country than your home country. So why would you go ahead to carry out business? Maybe to start up a business, what you call acquisition, global market entry mode, to start up a whole maybe parent company in another country, which is costly, right? Maybe the raw materials you're supposed to use in the production process in that country, they are so costly. And at the end of the day, you're not even going to benefit. So if you outweigh and you see maybe it is more expensive, it's more costly to operate in a foreign country than to operate business or to start up a company in a foreign country, than you would do it in your home country, why would you go ahead? So there it means that you rather produce domestically, and then rather than opening up another company, another subsidiary company in another country, right? All right, so you also look at the cost of the production and the shipping costs, the production and shipping costs, or these are under operational risks. So you may find that it is more costly to ship the product. Maybe you're looking at exporting. With exporting, you need to ship these goods, right? You ship them maybe over the sea, the water transport. You may need sometimes to use airplane, right? So the transportation cost may be higher than when, for example, you subcontract it together, or when you use joint venturing, or when you use mergers. So you have to outweigh all these costs and then come up with a global market entry model that will not be costly for you in terms of production costs and the shipping costs. Then also you look at the cost of production, which I've already talked about, that the cost of production here, you may find that it is more costly. You may find that maybe it is more costly to start up a parent company in another country than compared to when maybe you use joint ventures. So you outweigh the costs and then come up with and then you choose, or you select a global market entry mode that is favorable, that is less costly, that will not cost you, that will not be expensive, right? So you not just wake up one morning and you're like, now I'm going to use exporting. Exporting might not be the solution, but rather you have to outweigh and look at make a benefit cost analysis and come up with entry mode that will be financially viable for you, right? So unless there is any question, I want us to stop here. Any question?